It was almost midnight when Officer Marcy Bennett arrived at the police station. The small building was quiet, nearly empty, with only the soft hum of the flickering lights to keep her company. Tonight was her last shift. After this, the station would be closed for good. Marcy had spent many nights here, but this one felt different. There was an unsettling silence, as if the building itself knew its time was up. The station was old, with peeling paint on the walls and worn-out furniture. Marcy had heard stories about this place, stories of strange noises, unexplained shadows, and even a few tales of ghosts lurking in the basement. But she had never paid much attention to those rumors. She was practical, not one to believe in such things. Tonight, however, something felt off. As she settled in at her desk, the sound of a loud bang echoed through the station. Marcy's heart skipped a beat. It came from the basement. She shook her head, trying to brush off the unease that crept over her. It's just the old building settling, she told herself. But the noise came again, louder this time. Marcy stood up, grabbing her flashlight. A beam of light cut through the darkness as she made her way to the basement door. She hesitated for a moment before opening it. The stairs leading down were steep and narrow, and the air grew colder with each step she took. When she reached the basement, the smell of dampness and mildew filled her nose. The old holding cells were down here, long unused and forgotten by most. The dim light cast eerie shadows on the walls, making the bars of the cells look like skeletal fingers reaching out from the dark. Marcy heard a faint whisper, too soft to make out the words. She shone her flashlight around, but saw nothing. Just as she was about to turn back, her light caught something movement in one of the cells. Her breath itched as she saw a figure standing in the corner of the farthest cell, barely visible in the dim light. "Who's there?" she called out, her voice trembling slightly. The figure didn't respond. It just stood there, still and silent. Marcy took a step closer, her heart pounding in her chest. As she approached, the figure slowly turned toward her. It was a man, or at least it looked like one, but his face was twisted in a way that no living person should be. His eyes were hollow, and his mouth was stretched into a wide, unnatural grin. Marcy's hand shook as she reached for her radio, but all she got was static. The man in the cell began to move, gliding toward her without taking a step. Panic surged through her as she backed away, but the figure kept coming, growing darker and more menacing with each passing second. Suddenly, the flashlight flickered and went out, plunging the basement into total darkness. Marcy felt a cold breeze brush past her, followed by the soft whispering of voices she couldn't understand. She tried to scream, but her voice was gone, swallowed by the thick, suffocating darkness. Something cold and heavy wrapped around her, squeezing the breath from her lungs. The whispers grew louder, more frantic, until they were all she could hear. The last thing Marcy felt was the cold floor as she collapsed, her mind fading into the dark. Hours later, as the sun rose, the station was found empty. The new shift officer arrived to officially close the building, but there was no sign of Marcy. Her badge was left on the desk, covered in dust, as if it had been there for years. The basement was checked, but it was empty except for one old cell door that creaked open and closed on its rusty hinges, as if someone had just passed through. No one knows what happened to Officer Marcy Bennett on that last shift. Some say she vanished into thin air, while others whisper that she's still down there, lost in the dark. But the truth remains hidden, sealed away in the silence of the abandoned police station. The building was closed, and no one has dared to step inside since. Not even to find out what really happened on Marcy's last shift.